The story of the boy in the box is a tragedy that has left people all up in their feels for over 60 years. So a little boy's body was found in a cardboard box by two different people on 2 different days, and neither of them reported it at first. After the police finally found out about the boy, they tried to identify him, and no one knows who he is. They run through his fingerprints, print a picture of him on everyone's gas bill in Philadelphia, and even track down people who purchased a bassinet from JCPenney, which will make sense later, so pay attention. But when officials get close to finding the boy's family members, they basically stop the investigation and leave all of America on red. In February of 1957, a guy in Pennsylvania was checking his muskrat traps when he found a random cardboard box with something hella disturbing inside. So inside the cardboard box, the guy found the body of a little boy. The boy was covered in bruises and wrapped in a plaid blanket without any clothes on. So you'd think that the guy would immediately call the cops, right? Apparently he didn't want them to confiscate his traps, so he literally let the boy in the box and went about his day. Okay, so this is so sus that he didn't call the cops right away. Like, wouldn't that make him the lead suspect? Also, how can he just move on with the rest of his day after seeing that? So a few days later, a 26-year-old college dude was driving down the road when he saw a rabbit run across. He knew that there were animal traps in the area, so he decided to pull over to check things out, but he came across the boy in the box. But get this, he didn't even call the cops either. What the hell is wrong with these people? Like, the poor kid probably suffered enough, and now he's left in a box by not one, but 2 people who wouldn't call the cops. So the next day, the same college dude was listening to the radio when he heard the report of a missing little girl. He thought that may have been the kid in the box that he found the day before, so he called the cops. So when the police asked the dude why he waited a day to report the boy in the box, he said he thought it may have been a baby doll. Really? After the boy in the box was finally reported to officials, they went to check out the scene. The box was discovered in a wooden area in Philadelphia. It was a cardboard box that originally held a bassinet from JCPenney. So whoever did this shopped at JCPenney, which nowadays that would actually narrow things down quite a bit, because no one shops there anymore. But I feel like everyone probably shopped at department stores back in 1957. So officials estimated the boy was about 3 to 7 years old. He wasn't wearing any clothes, but he was wrapped in an old flannel blanket. His body was covered with bruises, and there were scars on his ankle, groin, and chin that appeared to be from surgeries. What? Okay, creepy. I hope the cops looked around for any top secret government laboratories in the vicinity. It could share some aspects with the plot of Stranger Things. The boy was super malnourished, but his nails and hair looked like they had been recently trimmed. Since it was super cold and rainy when the boy was found, it was hard to determine when he had passed. His fingerprints and footprints were tested, but there were no matches. Investigators thought someone was bound to report their kid as missing, but no one did. In the autopsy, examiners did mention the boy had no vaccination marks, so they believed he was never enrolled in public school. So since no one came forward to report this missing boy, the police then sent out 400,000 flyers to try and identify him. Each flyer had a picture and a description of the unknown child and was actually printed on every resident's gas bill in Philadelphia. Yo, that's like a pretty solid marketing tactic. They even had an article published in a medical journal that described his scars to see if anyone could help identify him that way. But still nothing. At this point, investigators needed to hone in on what they did know about this boy to see if they could find any leads from there. They did a more thorough search of the crime scene. Over 270 people ended up scouring the area for clues. The evidence found from all of the searches include the JCPenney box, the flannel blanket, a man's blue corduroy hat, a kid's scarf, and a white handkerchief monogrammed with the letter G. The box actually had a serial number on it, so officials were able to trace down the shipment. It was tracked back to a specific JCPenney store about 15 miles away. So the box was originally used to ship a bassinet, which is like one of those sweet old-timey cradles, and there were only 12 of these packages sent out in total. But they were all paid for using cash, so officials couldn't pinpoint who bought this specific one, or any for that matter. Ugh, Venmo, you're such a beautiful, life-changing app. Why'd you have to come so late? The plaid blanket was then examined by the Philadelphia Textile Institute. They determined it was made of cheap fabric from either North Carolina or Canada. I'm not sure how they found out the fabric could have been from those two random places. Also, what even is a textile institute? I didn't even know that was a thing. Investigators did include a picture of the blanket in the flyer, so they hoped someone would recognize it and come forward. I'm glad they were hopeful that they would get a lead from that, but everything was printed in black and white. I'm not even sure if someone would be able to recognize it if they tried. So at this point, things aren't looking so hot for the investigators. The box and the blanket both turned out to be flops, so the next piece of evidence they focused on was the blue hat that was found 15 feet away from the box at the scene. It was a man's royal blue corduroy hat with an Eagle Hat and Cap Company tag. A Philadelphia woman named Hannah came forward saying she was the one who made the hat. She told investigators that the hat was custom made for a blonde man who looked like he was about 26 to 30. He apparently paid in cash, and Hannah said she never saw him again. Well, all the evidence from the scene never turned into any hot leads for the investigators. The little boy was eventually buried in a Potter Field, which is a generic grave for unidentified remains. In 1998, the boy's story was featured in America's Most Wanted. A few people called in tips about the case, but no solid clues were gathered. That same year, the boy's body was exhumed for DNA testing, but nothing ever came of that at the time. After that, he was reburied at the Ivy Hill Cemetery in Philadelphia. People still stopped by to leave flowers, stuffed animals, and other gifts to pay their respects. A formal medical examiner named Remington became emotionally tied to the case, so he decided to continue investigating it himself to seek justice for the little boy. He worked on solving the case for over 36 years and spent thousands of dollars on doing so. He even went to a psychic and always carried a mask of the boy's face in his briefcase. Like, I'm all about figuring out who this boy is, but to carry a mask of this face is so terrifying. Like, hey, have you seen this guy? So Remington believes the little boy was from a foster home that was about a mile from where the box was discovered. At that foster home, Remington found a bassinet similar to the JCPenney one and a couple of blankets that looked just like the one that the boy was wrapped in. The man who ran the foster home, who had a stepdaughter, who Remington thought was the little boy's mother, she wasn't married at the time, and that was a big deal back then. So Remington thought she may have snuffed her son to keep her illegitimate child a secret. Remington ended up passing away before solving the boy's case, but another detective took over his work. The new detective later tracked down the woman and found out she ended up marrying her stepfather. Ugh. And did in fact have a little boy, but she claimed he passed away after being electrocuted. A DNA test was later performed on the unknown little boy and the alleged mother, but they were not a match. Another popular theory came about in the early 2000s. According to this theory, a woman named M claimed that her abusive mom bought the little boy from his original parents in 1954. She said the little boy was severely abused and eventually slain by her mother and dumped in the woods. The woman's statement matched one witness testimony, but her claim was never backed up with evidence. Officials also said M was a bit cray-cray, and her neighbors at the time denied that there was ever a little boy living with M's family, so her story was dismissed. In 2016, a new possible lead came up. A pair of writers were researching facts about the case when they found out about a guy from Pennsylvania who said his family once rented a house to a man that said he sold his son. The writers believe this man could have been the father of the boy in the box. Wait, he sold his son? And why would this guy tell that to the landlords at the place he was renting? A forensic investigator studied the facial structure of the suspected father and brother. There were a lot of similarities between the two men and the boy in the box. They also apparently took DNA samples of the alleged father and brother, but they were never tested against the little boys. The officers literally said, "We're going to investigate further." Investigate further? What do you mean? They were literally so close to figuring out the boy's identity and just gave up. Maybe they were hiding something or protecting someone. But I'm actually so upset about this whole DNA thing. Like, it's seriously been over 60 years of not knowing who this poor little boy is. Also, why was it a normal thing to sell your children back in the day? If I can't have closure on all of this, at least I can have pasta. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.